Welcome back to the show. So in this exploration, we are tackling a really massive topic.
Yeah, a huge one.
And it's something, I think every single person listening struggles with in some capacity. Whether you are running a massive corporate team or managing a small staff at a local coffee shop or just trying to manage the chaotic logistics of your own household.
Right.
We're talking about leadership, but we're not talking about the buzzword version of it. We're going straight back to the source.
It is a big one. And honestly, it is one of those words that gets thrown around so much in corporate seminars and self-help books that it almost loses its meaning entirely.
Completely.
It just becomes this vague cloud of like, be inspiring.
Exactly. And I think when most of us hear the word leadership, we have this very specific, almost Hollywood image in our heads.
Oh, absolutely.
You know the one? The loud, imposing figure barking orders in the rain, or the charismatic genius standing on a table giving a speech that makes everyone weep. We have been conditioned to think leadership is about domination, volume, and just pure raw energy.
Right. The great man theory. The idea that leadership is all about force of personality. If you aren't the loudest person in the room or the most extroverted, well, you aren't a leader.
But the sources we are looking at in this episode, specifically analyzing Sun Tzu's The Art of War, alongside some really fascinating organizational psychology, they flip that image completely on its head.
They really do.
They argue that true leadership isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It is actually quiet. It is structural. And above all, it is deeply, deeply calming.
That is the absolute key. Leadership not as domination, but as the creation of order, the protection of morale, and the maintenance of what we are calling a calm command.
I love that phrase, calm command. It sounds like something we could all use a bit more of in our nervous systems right now.
Yeah.
So the core premise for our discussion is really about how to create a sanctuary of clarity in a chaotic world. Whether you are leading a team, a family, or just trying to lead yourself in your own habits.
Precisely. It is about being the architect of order so that the people around you, or you yourself, can actually function without burning out. It is about moving from being a source of stress to being a source of stability.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to do that, and we have a lot of specific nuts and bolts to cover, I have a quick request for everyone listening. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
It really makes a difference.
So let's look at the roadmap. We are going to start by defining leadership in plain English, stripping away all the buzzwords.
Always a good place to start.
Then we are going to explore why order is actually the antidote to anxiety. That was a huge realization for me in the research. And finally, we're going to break down the calm command technique with very specific examples for work, relationships, and habits.
And we will finish up with a guided exercise to help you apply this immediately.
Perfect. So let's just jump right into it. Defining leadership. We have this source material from Sun Tzu, and obviously he is writing about literal battles in ancient history, but the principles are surprisingly applicable to, say, project management or parenting.
They really are, and we kind of have to look past the swords and shields here. When Sun Tzu talks about method and discipline, he is really talking about the operating system of the group.
Okay.
For him, leadership isn't about how well you can swing a weapon personally. It is not about the heroism of the general. It is about the clarity of the system the general builds.
The clarity of the system. So it is not, I am the boss, do what I say because I am powerful. It's more like, here is how this machine works, and here is your part in it.
Exactly. If we break it down into plain English based on the sources, true leadership consists of 3 non-negotiable parts. First, creating order without panic.
Creating order without panic.
Okay. Second, protecting morale through clarity and fairness. And third, making decisions that are clean and consistent.
Clean and consistent.
Yeah.
That seems to be where a lot of people trip up, right? I mean, we always hear that we need to be flexible, we want to be agile, but you are saying consistency is actually more important.
I am. Because consistency is boring, and honestly, we hate being boring. We want excitement. But consistency is what builds trust. If you are agile to the point where your team doesn't know what the goal is from one shift to the next, that isn't agility.
No, that is just chaos.
Exactly. It's chaos masquerading as flexibility.
There is this famous story or principle, really in the source material, about the general being to blame. And I want to push on this a bit because it sounds incredibly harsh. Can you unpack that for us?
It is harsh, but it is also the most liberating concept in the entire text if you really chew on it. The principle essentially says that if words of command are not clear and distinct, if orders are not thoroughly understood, the general is to blame.
Wow. So if my team is totally confused, if they mess up the big project,
Yeah.
it is not because they are not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
It is because I have not been clear.
That is the exact implication. Confusion in a team is a leadership failure, not a follower failure. Sun Tzu is saying that before you blame the team member for disobeying, or before you write up the employee for getting the report wrong, you have to look in the mirror.
And ask yourself what?
You have to ask, did I actually explain the standard? Was the signal clear? Or was I just speaking in riddles and assuming they would read my mind?
That puts a massive amount of responsibility on the leader. I mean, isn't there a point where the employee just needs to listen better? Why is it always the leader's fault?
That is a completely fair question. And of course, there are situations where someone is just negligent. But Sun Tzu is playing a probability game here. If you believe your team is just inherently bad or lazy or incompetent, you are helpless. You cannot fix their brains.
Right. You are just stuck.
But if you adopt the mindset that the confusion is your fault because the instructions weren't clear, you retain the power. You can fix the instructions. You can change the protocol.
That is such a powerful shift. It completely moves you from a victim mindset, like, why won't they just listen to me, to a problem-solving mindset.
Exactly. It removes the ego from the equation. It is not about you being personally disrespected. It is simply about the transmission of information being faulty.
So this leads us directly to the idea of order. Why is this order so critically important? I mean, I hear this and I think, sure, order is nice, but some people say they thrive in chaos. You hear that in startup culture all the time. Move fast and break things. Is order really the antidote to anxiety?
Short term, sure, adrenaline can fuel people. They can sprint through chaos. But the research is very clear here. Confusion wastes energy, has a real metabolic cost.
A metabolic cost.
Yes. When people don't know the rules or they don't know who is supposed to be doing what, they spend a huge amount of their cognitive energy just guessing. They aren't doing the actual work. They are scanning the environment, trying to figure out how to do the work without getting in trouble.
Oh, man. It is like driving in a city where the traffic lights are all broken. You are spending all your energy just trying not to crash, scanning every single intersection, rather than actually thinking about where you are going.
That is a perfect analogy, and it goes deeper than just wasted energy. It is about neuroscience. The brain is essentially a prediction machine. It constantly wants to know what happens next. When you have mixed signals, when the leader says one thing but does another, it creates a prediction error in the brain.
And prediction errors feel like threats.
Precisely. The brain perceives ambiguity as a literal threat. The amygdala activates. If I don't know what the standard is, I am constantly worried I'm about to step on a landmine. My cortisol goes up. My ability to think creatively completely shuts down.
So when we say leadership creates order, we're actually saying leadership soothes the amygdala.
Yes. That is the biological function of a leader. To lower the collective blood pressure of the tribe so they can actually focus on the hunt or the code or the project.
That explains so much of that vague workplace anxiety people feel. It is not necessarily the heavy workload. It is the not knowing if you're doing it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unclear standards create deep resentment. If the rules change constantly, if one shift it is perfectly fine to be a little casual, but the next shift you get yelled at for it, people feel unsafe. They feel like the game is rigged.
And when people feel the game is rigged, they stop playing.
They absolutely stop playing. And when they stop playing, morale collapses. Which brings us to the next big pillar from the text, morale.
Right. Morale as strategy. Now, Sun Tzu has this concept called the moral law. And I want to be careful here because the word moral in English usually means ethics, like just being a good, upstanding person. But that isn't exactly what he means, is it?
Not entirely, no. In the translation we are looking at, the moral law, or the Tao, is the thing that causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler. It is the glue. It is the shared belief system.
So it is not just about pizza parties and casual dress codes.
Yeah.
It is much deeper.
It is definitely not pizza parties. Morale isn't about feeling happy in a superficial, fleeting sense. It is a strategic asset. It determines if a team will stick together when things get incredibly hard. If you have the moral law, people will follow you into the deepest valleys, as the text says. They aren't afraid of danger because they trust the mission and they trust the leader completely.
So what actually drives that kind of foundational morale? If it is not snacks and office perks, what is it?
It comes down to safety and respect.
Okay.
The sources highlight that morale rises when people feel psychological safety. They know that if they do their job according to the clear standards we just talked about, they are secure. They won't be randomly attacked or humiliated.
That links right back to the clarity piece. If I know the rules, I feel safe. If I know the exact boundaries, I can relax within them.
Exactly. And the morale killers are the exact opposite. Unpredictability, favoritism, and constant reactivity. If the boss is moody, super happy, and joking one moment and screaming the next, morale just tanks. You cannot build a solid strategy on shaky ground. You cannot build a house on a swamp.
There is a paradox here, though, isn't there? Because Sun Tzu isn't exactly a softie. He is a military general. He talks a lot about iron discipline. How do you balance making people feel safe and respected with having really strict standards? Because I think a lot of leaders worry that if they're too nice, they will just get walked all over.
This is the paradox of strictness and benevolence. It is one of the most nuanced parts of the entire philosophy. The source says personnel must be treated with humanity, but kept under control by iron discipline.
Regard your soldiers as your children.
And they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Yes. But think about good parenting for a second. A good parent loves their child unconditionally. That is the humanity. But they also firmly stop the child from running into traffic. That is the discipline.
So the discipline isn't about being mean or tyrannical. It is about protection.
Precisely. The iron discipline actually protects the team. If I enforce the rules fairly and consistently, everyone knows exactly where they stand. That creates immense safety. If I let things slide for some people but not others, or if I ignore dangerous behavior, I am actually endangering the entire team. The discipline is a profound form of care.
That is such a crucial distinction. Strictness isn't mean if it is fair and predictable. It is actually comforting. It is like a railing on a high balcony.
Yeah.
You don't lean on the railing because you hate the view. You lean on it because it keeps you from falling.
It creates a container. People want to know where the walls are. They want to know the boundaries of their reality so they don't have to guess.
Okay, so we have order and we have morale.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the leader themselves, the calm command. This is about the internal state of the person in charge. And this is where I really struggle, and I know listeners do too. It is so easy to say, be calm. But when the server crashes, or the toddler is screaming, or the bank account is empty, panic is the natural human reaction.
It is the natural reaction, absolutely, but it is the amateur reaction. This is where the training comes in. The text talks about the wise warrior who wins with ease because they have made no mistakes. This requires a complete lack of anger or vexation.
Lack of anger. That is hard. We are human. We get mad when things go totally wrong.
We do. But the principle here is that calm is contagious. We see this in modern Stoic writings and even modern tactical strategy. If the leader panics, the team collapses. Period.
I've seen that happen so many times. A crisis hits, the boss starts freaking out, sending frantic messages, yelling, and suddenly everyone else is running around like headless chickens, making the problem worse.
The nervous system of the leader co-regulates the nervous systems of the team. We are social mammals. We constantly look to the leader to see how we should feel about a situation. If you are vibrating with anxiety, you are broadcasting that signal like a massive radio tower. Leadership is, in large part, the ability to absorb chaos and broadcast calm.
So you act as a dampener for the stress, not an amplifier.
Exactly. You are the heat sink for the entire group.
So what are the actual components of this calm command? How do we physically and mentally do it?
It starts with a calm tone, speaking in a lower, consistent register. It sounds simple, almost theatrical, but it physically helps regulate others. When you lower your pitch and slow your cadence, you are biologically signaling safety to the other person's brain.
That makes a lot of sense. Next on the list is clear intent, knowing exactly what you want before you open your mouth.
This is huge. How often do we start talking just to fill the awkward silence? A calm commander waits. They think, what is the actual order here? Then they give the order. They don't ramble.
Then, simple rules. Avoiding a thicket of regulations.
If the rule book is massive, no one follows it. Simple rules are easy to follow and easy to enforce. Be on time. Check your work. Treat others with respect.
And steady follow-through.
Doing exactly what you said you would do. If you say, this is the final deadline, and then you ignore the deadline when people miss it, you have broken the order. You have signaled that your words don't actually matter.
The last component mentioned in the outline is accountability without humiliation. This feels huge for maintaining that morale we talked about earlier.
It is the difference between correction and shame. The goal is to fix the behavior, not to destroy the person. You can look someone in the eye and say, this work did not meet the standard. Here is why. Here is what needs to change. That is accountability. It is clinical. It is precise.
Whereas humiliation would be,
You are an idiot. How could you mess this up? I can't believe I trusted you with this. That attacks their basic dignity. And once you attack dignity, you lose the moral law completely. You lose the loyalty. You have essentially created an enemy inside your own camp.
so you can be incredibly strict about the work itself, but completely respectful of the person doing it.
That is the sweet spot. That is calm command. You are hard on the standards, soft on the people.
Let's move to the practical application. We have all this philosophy. How does this look on a busy morning when everything is seemingly on fire?
Okay, let's look at practical leadership behaviors. The first one is straightforward. Set a clear objective.
Name the destination.
Yes. Seneca said, if you don't know the port, no wind is favorable. You have to be able to say, this is exactly where we are going, in one single sentence. If you cannot name the objective clearly, your team definitely cannot.
Next is define roles and ownership. Sun Tzu talks a lot about dividing up numbers.
He says controlling a large force is the exact same as controlling a few individuals. It is just a matter of clear subdivision. You need to know who owns what piece of the puzzle. If two people think they own the same task, you have instant conflict. If no one thinks they own it, it gets dropped entirely.
Clear lanes. I really like that. The third behavior, communicate the standard once, then reinforce calmly.
Don't nag. Nagging is a glaring sign of weak leadership. It implies you don't actually expect them to listen the first time. State the rule clearly. We start our sync meetings promptly. If someone shows up late, you don't need to give a long lecture. You just reinforce the standard. Hey, we start promptly. Please be on time next time. Calm, steady, unemotional.
Remove friction and unblock people. This is a big modern concept too, especially in tech and management.
It really is. Sun Tzu uses the imagery of a round stone rolling down a steep mountain. The leader's job is to clear the path so momentum takes over. Ask your team, what is stopping you? Is it a bad process? Is it a lack of resources? Your job isn't just to demand results, it is to actively remove the barriers preventing those results.
And finally, protect energy with pacing and boundaries.
This is absolutely crucial. Sun Tzu observes the initial energy of a fresh start versus the fading energy later on. You simply cannot push people at maximum intensity forever.
Rest is a strategic weapon.
It is. If you burn your team out, you have destroyed your own capability. A leader has to be the one to say, go home, we are done for this shift. Rest up. That protects your long-term asset.
I want to touch on the ethics guardrails before we get to the specific scenarios, because powerful leadership techniques can easily turn toxic if the underlying ethics aren't sound.
Absolutely. Sun Tzu heavily warns against leaders who merely seek fame or fear disgrace. He says leadership is service, not ego. The only valid goal is to protect the people and serve the mission. If you are leading just to look good or to feel powerful, you are incredibly dangerous.
And never use fear as the main tool.
Fear works fast. You can certainly scare someone into doing something right this second, but it burns trust. It kills innovation. Leading primarily by fear destroys the moral law. You want people to follow you because they trust you, not because they are terrified of you.
Okay, let's make this totally real. We have 3 examples lined up: work, relationships, and habits. Let's start with work. You are leading a really stressful project. It is behind schedule. The client is unhappy. What does calm command look like in that specific situation?
Okay, the amateur panic response is to send frantic off-schedule emails, yell at the team, and just vaguely demand everyone to work harder.
Which we know just creates more chaos and prediction errors.
Right. Calm command looks entirely different. You call a brief meeting. You speak in a low, steady voice. You say, okay, we are behind. Here is the reality. We are going to simplify the plan right now. You establish clear roles immediately. You own the presentation deck. You own the data analysis.
You instantly create order.
You create order. And you set up very predictable check-ins. We will meet for a short brief every single morning to clear any blockers. Instead of frantic random messages, you establish a steady rhythm. You give feedback objectively. You focus entirely on the work, not the person. You become the sanctuary of clarity in the middle of the storm.
I can literally feel my own blood pressure going down just imagining that boss. It changes the entire vibe of the room.
It does. It signals to the team, we have a plan. We are completely in control.
What about relationships? Personal leadership. Let's say there is a conflict, a boundary issue. Maybe a partner keeps leaving a mess, or a friend is constantly canceling plans at the last second.
This one is tough because deep emotions are involved, but the exact same principle holds. Lead with tone and clarity. Let's say someone is speaking to you disrespectfully in an argument.
The natural impulse is to snap back, to escalate, to fight fire with fire.
Right. That is chaos meeting chaos. Calm command is simply saying, I cannot accept this behavior. You set the boundary without escalating your voice. You don't get highly emotional. You just state the standard. I really want to talk through this with you, but I cannot do it when you are yelling. Let's take a break and come back when things settle.
You are protecting the morale of the relationship by enforcing the standard of respect.
Exactly. And you repair early. You don't let resentment build up over the long term. You address the breach of order right when it happens calmly so you can get back to harmony.
Third example, habits. Self-leadership. This is leading yourself.
This is often the hardest one of all. We are often absolute tyrants to ourselves. We try to use sheer force and willpower to make ourselves eat right or stick to a routine.
You lazy idiot, get up and do the work. We try to play drill sergeant with our own brains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is leading by fear and shame. It doesn't work long term. Instead, use calm command on yourself. Set a clear standard. I will do a short block of exercise. Keep a baseline, a minimum viable habit.
And when you slip, because we all inevitably slip.
When you slip, you return quickly. You don't shame yourself. You don't say, I ruined everything. I might as well give up completely. You just calmly reestablish the order. Okay, missed the previous goal. Back to the standard next time. Clean, consistent, no drama.
No drama. That is a fantastic summary of this whole philosophy. Leadership is really about removing the drama.
It is. It is removing the static noise so the actual signal can get through clearly.
Let's talk about common mistakes. Where do people typically go wrong when trying to implement this approach?
Mistake one is inconsistency, being strict one shift and totally lax the next. The fix is to be boringly predictable. Trust is built entirely on patterns.
Mistake two, emotional reactivity.
Giving orders while angry. The fix is the pause. Never give a command when your pulse is racing. Wait until the mind is totally clear.
Mistake three, unclear standards.
If you cannot write the rule on a simple note card, it is too complicated. Simplify it.
Mistake four, micromanagement.
This always stems from fear. The fix is to define the what, the core objective, and leave the how to the person. If they are capable, let them find the way.
And mistake five, ignoring fatigue.
Pushing relentlessly through exhaustion. The fix is to protect the spirit. Recognize that rest is part of the strategy, not a sign of weakness.
This is all incredibly practical. I want to give our listeners a very specific way to use this. We have a guided exercise called the Calm Command Brief.
This is a fantastic tool. You can use this before starting a major project or even before having a difficult conversation. It is essentially a checklist to get your own mind in proper order.
Okay, walk us through it.
First, name the objective in one sentence. What are we actually trying to do? If you cannot say it in one sentence, you aren't ready to lead.
Next, name the standard you will protect.
What is the non-negotiable quality or behavior? Is it no errors in the final output? Is it we treat each other with respect? Pick one primary thing to protect.
Then clarify roles or responsibilities clearly.
Who is doing what? Make absolutely sure there is no ambiguity.
Identify the main friction point to remove.
What is in the way? Name the obstacle so you can actively remove it.
Choose the single most important message to repeat calmly.
The clear signal amidst all the noise. What is the one thing they really need to remember?
Choose one morale action.
Appreciation, fairness, or listening. What specific thing are you going to do to make the team feel safe?
And finally, choose one proof action you will do.
A small win to prove the direction. Do one tangible thing to move the needle forward.
I really love that. It takes all the high-level theory and puts it into an executable plan.
It creates instant clarity, and as we've seen, clarity creates calm.
Before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap of the main points.
Sure. Leadership is the creation of order. Clarity reduces fear and anxiety. Morale is a strategic necessity. Calm is contagious. Standards must be consistent. Remove friction to create momentum. Lead with ethics and service.
Yeah, it is a seriously powerful manifesto.
It really is. It changes the entire way you look at authority. It is not about power over people. It is about power for people.
And it leaves us with a lot to think about regarding how we show up in our own lives. Are we creating order, or are we secretly just adding to the chaos?
That is the ultimate question. And remember, you can start very small. You can start by just consciously calming your own tone of voice. You can start by clarifying just one simple rule for yourself.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly fantastic conversation. I feel significantly calmer just talking through it.
Me too. It is always good to be reminded that we don't have to be loud to be highly effective.
Here's a final thought to mull over before we go. We talked a lot about removing friction for others, but consider the friction you tolerate in your own environment. True leadership might just start with fixing the broken process you walk past every single shift. Next time, we are going to look ahead to episode 11. We will be discussing terrain and conditions, positioning in real life.
That is going to be incredibly insightful. How to recognize exactly where you are standing and how to use the surrounding environment to your advantage. It pairs perfectly with everything we covered in this episode.
I can't wait. Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. On-screen text overlays for video production. Leadership creates order without panic. Confusion wastes energy and creates fear. Morale requires safety and respect.
Tone, intent, steady follow-through. Clear commands prevent leadership failure. Remove friction to unblock your team. Leadership is service, not ego. Protect energy with boundaries and pacing. Accountability without humiliation builds trust. Calm is contagious. Support line 1 included verbatim. Pass S. Support line 2 included verbatim. Pass S, no timestamps or digits included. Pass post, total length matches target range. Pass S.